The movie theater was electric. Huge explosions rocked the screen. Lasers zipped everywhere. It was a massive, scary action film. But in the middle of row G, two people weren't watching the movie. Abbacchio, all dressed in dark, stylish clothes, was getting annoyed. He just wanted to watch the carnage in peace. Next to him, Trish in a bright pink jacket was fidgeting. She kept whispering to herself, which was driving Abbacchio crazy. He tried to ignore it, focusing on the giant robot on screen getting sliced in half. It was no use. The whispering was like a tiny, persistent mosquito buzzing right in his ear.
Snorky is so much cooler. He would have solved this in like 5 minutes. He's a genius.
Abbacchio shot her a look. A what? Did she just say Snorky? He couldn't believe it. He leaned over, his voice a low growl. Are you kidding me? Bingo the gorilla would have just time traveled to before the robot was even built. Problem solved. No contest. Trish scoffed, turning to face him fully, her admiration for Snorky shining in her eyes. It was a look of pure, unwavering fandom, a look Abbacchio understood, but for a far superior character, obviously.
Snorky doesn't need cheap tricks like time travel. He uses his brain. He's clever, he's resourceful, and he's got heart. He once built a rocket out of a toaster and 3 paper clips. Can Bingo do that? No. He just pushes a button on his white belly and rewinds everything. That's not talent, that's cheating.
The accusation hung in the air between them. Cheating. The nerve. A man a few seats down shushed them, but neither of them noticed. They were locked in a battle of cartoon loyalties, a conflict far more important than the one on screen. Abbacchio felt a fire light up inside him. He had defended Bingo's honor at conventions, in online forums, and now in this crowded theater. Cheating? It's called being efficient. Why waste time with toasters when you can simply undo the mistake? Bingo is a pragmatist, a true hero who understands the bigger picture. He saves the day without getting his hands dirty. Snorky is for children who still believe in fairy tales. Bingo is for intellectuals who appreciate strategy. The words were out. The line had been drawn. This was no longer a simple disagreement, it was a declaration of war. The argument was getting louder now. People were turning around.
Intellectuals? You think a lazy gorilla who just hits and do all day is for intellectuals? Snorky inspires creativity. He teaches kids to think outside the box.
She gestured wildly with her hand, accidentally knocking over Abbacchio's giant bucket of popcorn. Kernels flew everywhere. They rained down on the people in front of them. It was a popcorn catastrophe. The buttery smell of conflict filled the air as chaos began to bubble. Abbacchio stared at the fallen popcorn, then back at Trish. That was it. You've gone too far. You insult Bingo and now you've wasted perfectly good popcorn. This aggression will not stand.
Oh, you want to go? Let's go. I'll show you what a little creativity can do.
The tension between them was now a physical thing, far more captivating than the choreographed fights on the movie screen. The audience was no longer watching the film. They were watching the real-life drama unfold in row G. Suddenly, the spilled popcorn on the floor began to change. It softened, melted, and stretched, becoming a sticky, gooey trap thanks to Trish's stand power Spice Girl.
Try being an intellectual now that you're stuck in a popcorn bog.
Abbacchio looked down to see his expensive leather shoes sinking into a buttery quagmire. He struggled, but it was like trying to walk through thick, sticky caramel. People around them gasped. This was way better than the movie. Abbacchio just smirked. He wasn't trapped, not really. A cute trick, but entirely predictable. In a flash of purple energy, his stand, Moody Blues, appeared behind him. He began to rewind his own personal timeline. To everyone else, he was suddenly standing perfectly fine a few feet to the left, his shoes completely clean just before he had stepped into the popcorn trap. As I said, efficiency. The crowd murmured in astonishment. The fight had officially gone supernatural. This was a 4-dimensional movie experience nobody had paid for. Trish was not impressed.
Dodging isn't winning.
She touched her own seat, and the plush velvet instantly turned as hard as rock. She ripped it from its bolts and hurled it at Abbacchio. It flew through the air like a deadly cushioned missile. People screamed and ducked. The theater, once a place of entertainment, was now a legitimate danger zone. The ushers at the back were frozen, staring with wide eyes, unsure if this was part of the show or a situation that required calling for backup. The sheer absurdity of a flying theater seat was too much for them to process. Abbacchio saw the seat coming. He didn't even flinch. Rewind! Moody Blue's word, and Abbacchio's body flickered. He appeared a few seconds in his own past, standing right where Trish had been moments before she threw the seat. Now, the flying chair was heading directly back towards an unsuspecting Trish.
Look out!
Trish gasped, her eyes widening as her own attack came hurtling back at her. This rewind power was incredibly annoying, she had to admit, but her resolve to prove Snorky's superiority did not waver for a second. Thinking fast, Trish activated Spice Girl again. Just before the rock-hard seat could hit her, she slammed her hand on it. The seat instantly became as soft and floppy as a giant marshmallow. It hit her with a gentle thump and flopped harmlessly to the ground, a useless piece of fabric and foam.
Nice try.
But she was breathing heavily. This was exhausting. She then touched the floor, and a wave of rubbery softness spread outwards, causing the rows of seats to wobble like jelly. People shrieked and held on for dear life as the entire section of the theater turned into a bouncy castle. The chaos reached its peak. Abbacchio, trying to find firm footing on the wobbly floor, activated Moody Blues again to rewind himself back onto solid ground. But as he reappeared, he miscalculated. He rematerialized halfway into a large soda that someone had dropped. A huge splash of sticky cola erupted, drenching him completely. He stood there, dripping and furious, while Trish, bouncing on a rubbery seat, couldn't help but let out a snort of laughter. The sight of the impeccably dressed Abbacchio covered in soda was just too much. The entire audience was now just watching them, completely forgetting the multi-million-dollar blockbuster on screen. The fight came to an abrupt end. Abbacchio, drenched and sticky, slipped on the rubbery floor and crashed into a pile of now softened seats. At the same time, Trish, distracted by her laughter, lost her balance and tumbled right into him. They lay there in a tangled heap of limbs, popcorn, and shame. Abbacchio had a sprained wrist. Trish had a massive bump on her head. They were both bruised, battered, and utterly defeated. The theater around them was a disaster zone. The movie's epic final battle played on, unnoticed by the human wreckage in row G. On the screen, the two cartoon heroes, who had been fighting the entire film, a hulking robot and a brave knight, finally stopped. They looked at the destruction they had caused, then at each other. The knight extended a hand, and the robot took it. They had realized their fight was pointless. Lying on the floor, covered in soda and popcorn, Abbacchio and Trish watched this scene. A slow smile spread across Trish's face. She started to giggle. It was a weak, pained giggle, but it was genuine. She looked at Abbacchio, who was trying to maintain his angry expression, but failing miserably. A chuckle escaped Abbacchio's lips, then another. Soon both of them were laughing. They laughed until their bruised sides hurt. They laughed at the flying chairs, the popcorn bog, the cola bath, and the sheer ridiculous intensity of it all. Okay, maybe Bingo is a little bit lazy.
And maybe Snorky's toaster rocket was a little unrealistic. The movie ended and the credits rolled. The lights came up, revealing the full extent of the devastation. The other moviegoers just stared at them, a mixture of shock, awe, and amusement on their faces. An usher finally approached, clipboard in hand, looking terrified. Abbacchio groaned and slowly got to his feet. He then offered a hand to Trish, pulling her up. "Come on, let's get out of here. I'm buying you a waffle. My treat." "Deal, but you have to admit Snorky would have known the best waffle place."
Abbacchio just rolled his eyes and laughed. Abbacchio and Trish later died due to Bingo and Snorky fight scene.